Trump favorite of CNN, Don Lemon, will apparently not be appearing on the network today, although they are pushing back against rumors that he's been benched in any sort of lingering way. All of this is the continuing fallout from comments Don Lemon made last week about presidential candidate Nikki Haley. Apparently his future with the show, with the network, is being discussed, although the messaging that's coming from private sources, from public sources, very different here. So if you don't remember the original comments, while discussing Nikki Haley's presidential bid, he referred to her as not being in her prime. In particular said, thus, she shouldn't be using that term about other people, because bear in mind, Nikki Haley has been and continues to really be focusing on the age of politicians. So then Don Lemon may be attempting to throw that back in her face, used language that I think a lot of people interpreted as misogynistic. Now that said, back on Friday, he attempted to apologize about this, saying in a editorial phone call that they apparently have at CNN, which is a very interesting concept, that they all talk. What are they talking about there? What decisions are being made?
Well, we know there's a group. Stuff. There's a group text in Fox, so there's got to be a group text in CNN.
That's like, true. No, but this editorial phone call seems like a much more official thing.
Sure.
Anyway, so on that, he says, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I did not mean to offend anyone. What I said came out wrong, and I wish I hadn't said it." I definitely agree with that part. "I believe women of any age can do anything they set their minds to. The people I am closest to in this organization are women. When I make a mistake, I own it, and I own this one as well. I understand why you're upset and disappointed. I was trying to make the point that no one's age should define their ambition or potential for success, and I was saying those comments to Nikki Haley." Apparently, he then said in a way that angered some of his female colleagues, who he's closest to, said, "I'm going to continue to be who I am." I would have left that last part off, because this is an apology. You're supposed to not continue to be that part of you that said the thing. But anyway, the one senior staffer said, "This is great, but it's our viewers who deserve an apology." That's up for debate. I mean, I think the coworkers, the viewers, Nikki Haley, I think there's a variety of people who could make a legitimate claim on wanting to have an apology. But Francesca, what do you think about this?
I'm definitely, here's where I stand on apologizing on the internet in general. I feel like it never works. And even when I think people should apologize, I kind of feel like, look, you're on air that much, just like we are, John. You're gonna say some stuff. I say things, and people know that like maybe it was a flip thing to say, it wasn't the correct thing to say. So I'm lukewarm on publicly apologizing as Don Lemon, especially to a right winger like Nikki Haley. They jump all over apologies because we're talking about a party and a philosophy and ideology that does not believe they are ever wrong, even though they are raging hypocrites. They're walking hypocrites. And they breathe hypocrisy. They just get high off of it. They don't actually know that's hypocrisy. I mean, if you ask Trump Jr., it is straight cocaine. No, it's yayo. But no, what I will say, it is weird that he referred to her as not being in her prime when we have a Democratic president who, if he is reelected, will be what, 82? When he assumes office. So I see it both ways. What do you think?
Yeah, look, she's obviously much younger. The only thing, again, look, if I was Don Lemon, I would just be apologizing this because I think it makes sense too. It was a blundering way to address the point. If he was trying to make a point, don't talk about whether a female politician is in her prime, but maybe say that it is generally broadly unacceptable to make the age of politicians a thing. Like if you want to get across a general point, but I don't know that he necessarily wants to make that general point. So the entire thing was just so weird and muddled. Hold on, he had a tweet apology too. Let's see if we can figure out his state of mind from that. It says, "The reference I made to a woman's prime this morning was inartful and irrelevant, as colleagues and loved ones have pointed out, and I regret it. A woman's age doesn't define her either personally or professionally. I have countless women in my life who prove that every day." I don't know. It seems weird. It honestly, like from the point of view of Nikki Haley, like, although, I'm sure she's not a fan of either the misogynistic or the racist attacks that she's facing on a minute by minute basis. making the first week of her presidency about how people are being unfair to her rather than the massive failings of her campaign that have been very much on display, that we've been doing ongoing coverage of, is probably better for her, honestly, that she gets to point out that the mainstream media is being unfair to her, the liberal media and Don Lemon's being unfair to her, and she's gonna be a critic. Now, of course, one could also point out, isn't her side of the aisle, the Fox News is the MAGA heads, don't they hate when you have to be politically correct and apologize for the things that you say? Shouldn't all of them be massive defenders of Don Lemon for just speaking his mind? I mean, there are plenty of right wingers that are saying far more openly racist and misogynistic things about Nikki Haley. So it is weird that they're not defending him, except it's not weird at all. So anyway, we're gonna have to see what effect this has long term on Don Lemon. Others are saying that he has been a constant distraction. So it might be that this is not the individual thing that's causing him problems at CNN. It might just be the most recent one, Francesca.
Well, okay, there's a couple issues here. Like CNN has had its worst ratings in, what was it, like 12 years or something? They moved Don Lemon to the mornings. That didn't help anything or anyone. Gee, I guess when you like tack to the center in a time when it is so clear that we actually need to be like planting our flag in the non-fascist camp of just basic reporting.
Yeah.
People don't like it. People don't like it as much. And you can shuffle the chairs on the Titanic here, but like CNN's just not doing well overall. The second thing though is I do think it was sexist. It was just a sleight of hand. It was just like, for lack of a better term, a microaggression that a lot of women hear all of the time, and it slipped out, and it shows us how normalized those kinds of patriarchal, messages and microaggressions are. That being said, you're totally right that the right hates when you point out identity politics unless that identity is a cis straight white man with a lot of money. That's the only identity that allows you to say that you're being aggressed upon and people hate you and they're biased against you, and you can be a crybaby only if you are a man baby. That's it.
Yeah, and simultaneously, if that's your identity, you're also the best and the strongest.
Of course.
The alpha, the creator of empires. And you should be allowed to cry whenever you want. Anyway, it's always weird how that works out. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.